Hi folks, how you going? We're getting right into what Jesus said about the last days, okay? Did Jesus predict events into the distant future on his Olivet discourse? It's in Mark 13, Matthew 24, Luke 17 and Luke 21. Did Jesus ever speak about events that would go right down past 70 AD? Way past into the distant future? Yes, he did. I know this is unpopular, but he did. Let's have a look at Luke chapter 21. What you're going to find in Luke 21 is this. We're just going to divide it up into sections. Jesus, in this sermon on the destruction of Jerusalem, yes, it's about the destruction of Jerusalem, no doubt about it, but it's not just about the destruction of Jerusalem. Jesus lays out a prophetic outline, nearly in the line, with he has the destruction of Jerusalem right in the middle, and he'll talk about events that go right up to the destruction of Jerusalem at 70 AD, and then he goes beyond it. And it's the part that he goes beyond 70 AD that unfortunately most people have not seen. Okay? Let me outline this for you. In Luke chapter 21, Jesus will talk about history in two groups. Events leading up to 70 AD and events after 70 AD. As we go up to events up to 70 AD, he will use the pronoun you. He's going to talk to the disciples who are listening, and he's saying, these are the events that you're going to go through leading up to 70 AD and the destruction of Jerusalem. Then, he says, we go into a period of time called the times of the Gentiles. When he goes past the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, he won't talk to you anymore. He won't use the word you anymore about the disciples. He'll talk about them. They. He never says that the disciples would be around after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So up to 70 AD, the destruction of Jerusalem, he will have the pronoun you. After that, he will use the pronoun them or they. Okay? Let's have a look how this unpacks neatly for Jesus. Luke 21, 5 to 27. We're just going to read the whole chapter, okay, in context, and let the narrative teach us rather than forcing our ideas into the text. Let's just look at the text. Are you ready to go? Luke 21, 5 to 27. I'll comment as we go through. As some were talking about the temple complex, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, so they're looking at the Jerusalem temple, oh, wow, this is beautiful, yeah? And Jesus saw they were talking about and admiring and putting the temple up on a pedestal, and Jesus saying, it's coming down. They were admiring how beautiful it was. And then Jesus said to them in verse 6, these things that you see, the followers of Jesus, they're looking at the temple. These things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left on another that will not be thrown down. Clear, unequivocal, unambiguous statement. Jesus is talking about a prophecy concerning the destruction of Jerusalem, which happened in 70 AD. Clear. And people will say, that's all he was talking about. No. Okay? Because he mentions the destruction of Jerusalem in a few verses, and then he talks about a time called the times of the Gentiles, starts afterwards. So even though he's talking about the Jerusalem destruction in 70 AD, he's not just talking about the Jerusalem destruction in 70 AD. And he's saying, you see these things that you see, you're going to see these things, it's going to come to an end. Yeah? Verse 7, Jesus said, teacher, they asked him, so when will these things be? What will be the sign when these things are about to take place? What things? What things? Let's go back to verse 6. These things that you see, the temple. Verse 5 again. As some were talking about the temple complex, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, he said, these things that you see, what? How it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God. These things are going to come down, and the stones are going to come down. And they said, Lord, in verse 7, when will these things be? That the stone comes down, adornments come down, and the gifts come down. Very, very specific. When will these things be? The things related to the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Okay? So when is this going to happen? Verse 8. Then Jesus said, watch out that you are not deceived. When is the Jerusalem, this temple, going to be destroyed? And now he talks to them about them. He'll use the pronoun you when he's discussing events leading up to 70 AD. And in verse 8 he says, watch out that you are not deceived, leading up to 70 AD. For many will come in my name saying, I am he, and the time is near. Don't follow them. Who's he talking to? His followers. What time period? Leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem. Don't follow them. Verse 9, when you, his followers, hear of wars and rebellions, don't be alarmed. In these things must take place first, but the end will not come right away. Stop. Notice the chronological statements here, the temporal markers, the chronological markers. These things must take place first, but the end, first, end, won't come right away. What end? The end of the destruction of Jerusalem. Because at this point in time, that's all they're talking about. Later on, Jesus will go beyond it. So the end that's being discussed here is the end of the Jerusalem temple, which took place historically under the Romans 70 AD. They came in and they flattened it, as you all know. So there are some things that will take place first, wars and rumours of wars and antichrists, but the end of the temple won't take place yet. These are the first things. And then the end of the temple will come. Those events are actually mentioned in the book of Acts. You had false Christs, you had false prophets, it's all there. Yeah, it's all there. So they did happen. But these are the first things, and then the destruction of Jerusalem will take place. Just please note that we've got events leading up to 70 AD, and there are some events that take place first, and then the end comes. See, there's a chronological statement. There's first this, then this, then this, then the destruction of Jerusalem, and the disciples would see it. He said, you. Verse 10. Then Jesus told them, nation will be raised up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be violent earthquakes and famines and plagues in various places, and there will be terrifying sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. But we still have not reached the end of the Jerusalem temple, which is going to describe. Please note that the focus is on the followers of Jesus. Okay? They're going to preach, they're going to be persecuted, they're going to be imprisoned. And they were. And they said, but these things are going to happen first, and countries are going to come against countries, and there was various battles leading up to 70 AD. And there will be terrifying sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, there's another chronological statement. So, there are celestial signs that are going to come before the destruction of Jerusalem. Why am I saying that? Because Jesus is going to tell us that after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, a time period is going to begin called the times of the Gentiles, and the celestial signs will happen again. Again. But not in connection with the destruction of Jerusalem. These additional celestial signs are going to take place just before the return of Jesus, when the times of the Gentiles are over, which commence at the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, I've gone way ahead of myself. Let's keep going. Verse 12, but before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you. They'll hand you over to the synagogues and the prisons. Synagogues, right? Talking about events leading up to 70 AD. and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. It will lead to an opportunity for you to witness. Therefore, make up your minds not to prepare your defense ahead of time. So when you go and you're going to be brought before, he's talking to the church leading up to 70 AD. When you go before kings and governors and the synagogues and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin, don't get your spin ready what you're going to say, okay? God's going to tell you what to say. These are events that would happen upon the church between 30 AD and 70 AD. It's clear. Because the initial question was events leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem. So all these events are chronologically nailed between 30 and 70 AD, and they did. But it doesn't just stay there. Verse 14, therefore make up your minds not to prepare your defense ahead of time, for I will give you such words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. He's talking to the followers back then. You will even be betrayed by parents, you, leading up to 70 AD. Brothers, relatives and friends, they will kill some of you. And they did. You will be hated by everyone because of my name, but not a hair of your head will be lost. By your endurance, gain your lives. Then, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. We've now reached, we've gone through all the events, this, before this, there were signs in the heavens, you're going to be blah, 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 and then the destruction of Jerusalem will come. So it's clear, he uses the pronoun you, he's talking to them, what's going to happen to them, with events leading right up to the destruction of Jerusalem. Believe it or not, guys, I'm on the floor and the phone's on a chair. See, the chair's moving. Whee! All right, so, and now we finally got to the cruncher. The destruction of Jerusalem takes place. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, the apostles were going to see that Jerusalem surrounded by armies. We're now going to see him talk about the destruction of Jerusalem. Verse 20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize that its destruction has come near. Okay, the original question was, when is the Jerusalem temple going to be destroyed? What is the sign? When Rome comes and surrounds the city. Then you will see its destruction. Okay? Now we have reached right up to the destruction of Jerusalem. And that's the interesting part. Jesus said, and there will be more events after that. All right? He will go way past. He'll include the destruction of Jerusalem, but he's going to go way past it. So when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, verse 20, then recognize that its destruction has come near. Verse 21, then, chronological marker. When then? When its destruction has come near. When you see the Roman armies coming around Jerusalem in 70 AD, yeah? Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. He didn't say then you must flee to the mountains. Why? When you see the armies surrounding Jerusalem, you guys won't even be there. He's talking about others inside of the Jerusalem city because Rome has come to knock it down. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Those inside the city must leave it. And those who are in the country must not enter it. He doesn't say you anymore. You're going to see Rome surrounded at 70 AD. He's now describing the impending destruction of 70 AD. And he's now going to tell us, and there's going to be plenty more events after 70 AD. Okay? It's coming this way. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Those inside the city must leave. And those who are in the country must not enter it, because there are days of vengeance to fulfill the things that are written. The Romans are going to come and smash it, yeah? Woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days. What days? The days just before, when the Roman soldiers are come to surround the city. Woe to those, not you. They were not going to be there. Why? They already knew what was going to happen. Yeah? Because these are days of vengeance to fulfill all the things that are written. Woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days, for there will be great distress in the land, Jerusalem, and wrath against this people. Which people? Israel. He's talking about Israel and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. You say, but Santo, you keep saying he's talking about he's going to talk about events after the destruction of Jerusalem. Wait, it's coming. He's now dealing with the destruction of Jerusalem, but he's not finished. Wrath against this people Israel. Verse 24, they, literal Israel, will fall by the edge of the sword. Destruction of Jerusalem now? Yeah? You say, oh, that's it, the prophecy ends. Jesus didn't talk about events after 70 AD. We're not finished. They, Israel, will fall by the edge of the sword, and they will be led into captivity into all the nations. Stop! We've gone past the destruction of Jerusalem, haven't we? Yes. And now the Israelites, the Jews, we're going to be after the destruction of Jerusalem. The Romans are going to grab you and send you off into all the nations. Well, that's an event that comes after the destruction of Jerusalem. He has begun. Oh, but Santo is still connected with the destruction of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD and then they were just led into the nations. It doesn't say he's going to talk about events after they're led away into the nations. Yes, he does. Let's keep going. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all the nations. Now they're being dispersed. After 70 AD, after the destruction of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until. Wow. It's not going to stop in 70 AD. You got 70 AD, destruction of Jerusalem. The Jerusalem armies come, they surround. Woe to pregnant mothers. Don't go in there. Those in the country, don't go there. Leave. Time to go. But then they will fall by the sword. 70 AD, bang. The destruction has come. Then, once the destruction's over, the Roman armies are going to get you and disperse you into the nations until, what? Until is a temporal statement. Events are going to happen after the destruction of Jerusalem and after the Jews have been removed from Jerusalem and dispersed into the nations. And Jerusalem will keep getting smashed. And Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles have been fulfilled. Wow. Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot for a period of time. And until, what's that time called? The times of the Gentiles. It's plural. The times are the Gentiles. Haven't we found that throughout history? How many times have the Jewish people been smashed? How many holocausts have the Jews endured under the hands of the Gentiles? Thousands of years. They will fall by the edge of the sword, 70 AD. And then they will be led into captivity into all the nations after 70 AD. And then Jerusalem, which was already smashed, will continue to be trampled by the Gentiles. How long? Until the times, plural, of the Gentiles are fulfilled. The destruction of Jerusalem triggered a period of time called the times of the Gentiles. So Jesus does talk about the destruction of Jerusalem, no doubt, and he goes beyond it. It's clear. The destruction of Jerusalem triggers a period of time. Destruction of Jerusalem, Jews taken out to the nations. The times of the Gentiles starts, and the Gentiles will keep hammering the Jews in Jerusalem. Keep Holocaust, Holocaust, Holocaust. For how long? Until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Folks, it's crystal clear. It's unambiguous. Jesus did talk about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then that event triggered another period of time called the times of the Gentiles, a time characterized by one major event, the Jews being trampled underfoot. So what happens during the times of the Gentiles? Verse 25. Then, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, and then. Times of the Gentiles, then. Times of the Gentiles, then. We are now looking at events after the destruction of Jerusalem, during the times of the Gentiles. What's going to happen after 70 AD? Then, during the times of the Gentiles and up until they're fulfilled, you can expect the following events after 70 AD. Until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, verse 25, then, after the times of the Gentiles take place, then there will be signs in the sun, moon and stars. Again! We have signs in the sun, moon and stars leading up to the end of Jerusalem temple. And there will be signs in the sun, the moon and stars leading to another end when Jesus returns. The end of the times of the Gentiles. Until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, and then there will be signs in the sun, moon and stars when the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And there will be anguish on earth among nations. Hang on. He's moved from Jerusalem to the nations. From the local to the global. After the localized destruction of Jerusalem, we will enter into the times of the Gentiles, and then things take on a cosmic proportion. I can see the thumbs going up here. Yeah? So, then there will be signs in the sun, moon and stars, and there will be anguish on earth among the nations. The nations who are persecuting are now copping it. You see? It goes from the local Jerusalem to worldwide. And this happens after 70 AD, during the times of the Gentiles. And the times of the Gentiles will end with signs in the sun, moon and stars. And there will be anguish on earth among the nations, bewildered by the roaring sea and waves. People will faint from fear. Not Israel, not you. People, nations, everyone. It's become universal. Well, what's going to happen at the end of the times of the Gentiles? What's going to happen at the end of the times of the Gentiles? People will faint from fear and expectations of things that are coming on the world, not Jerusalem anymore. End of the times of the Gentiles, the world, because the celestial powers will be shaken. Again, where's this leading to? What's going to be the climactic event at the end of the times of the Gentiles? What's going to happen to the whole world? What's this climactic event? Verse 27, then they, the world, will see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. That's the end of the times of the Gentiles. Wow. So when people tell you Jesus didn't talk about events after 70 AD, they really need to read Luke. 70 AD focuses on what's going to happen to the Jews and the Christians who are preaching for Jesus up to 70 AD. 70 AD comes, right? Bang. The times of the Gentiles happens. The Jews are sent into dispersion, captivity amongst the nations, and Jerusalem is going to experience Holocaust. After the Holocaust, it will be trampled underfoot during the period called the times of the Gentiles. How long does that last? There will be signs in the sun, moon and stars, celestial signs, and there will be global signs. Jerusalem will keep getting smashed. And then finally the world, the nations, not the Jews in Jerusalem anymore, and not even the disciples. He didn't say, you will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. They will. They're dead. They're gone. Yeah. And then what's the climactic event? Jesus returns. That's the eschatological outprint of what Jesus says is going to happen in Luke chapter 21. I will shortly get into Babylon series. You take care. Bye-bye.